Hi everyone, my name is Joseph, and today I wanted to discuss House of the Dragon Season 2, which ran from June 16th through August 4th. Pardon me, I have my fan on in the background, so you guys hear that noise, it's just my fan. So let's discuss House of the Dragon Season 2. So if one is keeping up with the show, they're probably aware that the community, the fan base, most people in general, they're finding that Season 2, unfortunately, was not as great as Season 1. Now, before I start talking about the season itself, I do believe it's important to keep in mind some important contextual details, such as the fact that it was I can't even blame HBO because it was their parent company, WB Warner Brothers specifically, that told HBO that they were going to get lower funding, not just lower funding, but also to cut the episodes from 10, so a 10 season to an 8 season instead. And unfortunately, this did have an impact upon the narration and the storytelling. In fact, supposedly there's one scene between Renora and Massaria. Excuse me, I'm not pronouncing the names correctly. Where I won't be specific, just for minor spoilers, but it's very minor. But there's one specific scene between the one action specifically that a lot of people felt like it came out of the blue and nothing really came from it. But apparently, it's looking like the reason why nothing came from it is because that was supposed to be explored in one of the episodes that was. In one of the two episodes that was taken away from this 10 episode season. So with that out of the way, I think it's not my way to state those details to excuse the writing and the plot direction for season 2, but I think with that in mind, it'll allow one to be a bit more understandable and be more willing to come back for season 3. Now, with all of that being said, even if that contextual details are not true, I still do feel like although the pacing was a little bit different compared to season 1, I think it does a good job of still making the viewer want to come back for season 3 because of how everything is set up. So season 2 literally ends, so there will be some major spoilers from here on out, so be real about that. But season 2 ends last 5 minutes, quite literally setting up all the major battles that's going to occur for season 3. Unfortunately, with the news about the whole decrease in budget I'm hoping that this won't have an impact upon the battles for season 3. Apparently, season 2 was supposed to have two battles: the Battle of Rook's Nest and the Battle of the Gullet. Correct me if I'm wrong about that. But again, because of the whole shortening of the season, that's going to be postponed to season 3. But my concern is if there's going to be less of a budget, does this mean that we're only going to have one battle again in season 3? I really hope that's not true. And I suppose I should have added this detail with the contextual details as well, but in case one didn't know, House of the Dragon will be ending with season 4. So it's already been announced there's only going to be 4 seasons. So 2 more seasons after this. And both of those seasons are only going to be 8 episodes. At least this time the writers are aware about that. And they'll hopefully be able to utilize their time advantageously. So as I said earlier, the whole having to reduce the 10 episodes to 8 episodes to have an impact upon the story. This is really felt not just with that scene between Renora and Massaria, but also with the last episode as well, with the new character that was introduced. I feel like those scenes could have been reduced, more specifically Admiral Laurel with Tylan. I think his name is Tylan Lannister. At first the scene was fun. I especially loved how the Tyrasi finally had their blue hair and blue beards. I just really recently finished my rereading of A Song of Ice and Fire, so that was really cool to see on screen. But I felt like the scenes just dragged on a bit too long. I think we should have just had just 2 scenes and just get rid of the mud fight all entirely. Or better yet, just have the mud fight happen off screen and just have the aftermath be discussed instead. It was such a weird scene. I know a lot of people are saying it added a lot of brevity and a lot of lightheartedness to the show, but I really don't think we really needed that. I'm currently reading for the first time in Knights of the Seven Kingdoms, and the first novella, The Hedge Knight, it starts off really cute. It's such a cute story. It could have been just a simple, superficial, lighthearted story about about a knight with a squire. But by the middle of that novella, I would argue that classical Martin comes in and he has to introduce. This could just be a typical fantasy story, but nope. I'm sorry. We're going to make this a tragic fantasy story instead, and it really adds a lot to it. There were some comical parts in the story, but not comical because they pointed out to it, which is comical because of how characters acted within it. Like, for example, one as so spoilers for Knights of the Seven Kingdom as well, but Darien's character, Darien Targaryen, that sounds kind of funny. Darien Targaryen, he's a alcoholic and a drunk, but the way that he carries himself, it is comical. It's funny. I just felt like for Admiral Laurel and House of the Dragon, the characterization was just too much. It just came out of the blue, especially because Tyler Lannister had this whole intensive conversation between the Pirate Lords or the Pentashi, Tarashi, Nobles, whatever they may have been. Um, so yeah, so that I felt like they could have reduced the scenes for the last episode and given us more with other characters. A lot of people were complaining about the scenes between the dock scenes between Corlys and his bastard son. I personally was fine with those scenes because I do like Corlys as a character. With that being said, though, I definitely can't see why people thought we went back to the docks too much. I do have to agree with people, especially with the last 5 minutes when Corlys and his bastard son, I think his name is Alyn, um, or Adam, excuse me, Adam. When they're rowing to his ship, it's like just one ship. I thought they were building a fleet for some reason. No, I did know they were repairing a ship, but I thought for sure we'll be seeing like an escort at the very least with Corlys' ship. But no, it was just Corlys' ship by itself. So that was interesting. But again, I did appreciate what was built up between those two characters, between Corlys and Adam's character. And then, of course, they did such a great job with introducing the dragon seeds. A lot of people were confused about Jace's reaction to the dragon seeds. I personally, maybe I'm projecting because I do like him. I'm not gonna lie, I like bastard characters like Jon Snow and Jacaerys, excuse me, Jake. The reason being is because I think it makes sense from Jake's point of view because I don't think Viserys was a bad father. He did the best that he could, but he also was delusional. He did not live in a utopia, and he ignored the fact that by making his daughter the heir, that was going to have a lot of issues once he passed away. And those issues also did come from a misunderstanding as well, right? Because he mentioned Aegon's name, thinking about the prophecy, and unfortunately Alicent misunderstood that. But even without that portion, we saw that Otto Hightower, Tyrion Lannister, and other individuals were already plotting to take over the rulership, to take the rulership from Daenerys and over onto Aegon or the Hightower side. So even if Viserys didn't make that comment, this issue still would have bubbled up to the surface, right? From Jake's point of view, he sees that when his mom passes away, that's going to be an issue about his bastardy. And I do have to agree with that. In the books of Fire and Blood, Daenerys' hair is actually black, not silver. And I do wish they had kept it black because if one reads Fire and Blood, not all the Targaryens, because of the Dornish blood, when the Targaryens marry Dornish women, it's looking like those Dornish women, their genes encourages black or brown hair over silver hair. So there's a lot of Targaryens who don't have silver hair. One wouldn't know that just from watching the shows, because in the shows, we see Daenerys' sons, but they're bastards, right? Again, in the books itself, even the legitimate born children, they have non-black hair. So that's an unfortunate detail that was removed. Because again, from Jake's point of view, I could totally see that occurring. And in fact, if one knows anything about the world of Song of Ice and Fire of Westeros, they will be aware of the Blackfire Rebellion, where essentially the whole bastard issue, exactly what Jake is worried about, does occur. So I see his point of view. I loved how it was his idea, but the reason why he turns against that idea is because he also is keeping himself in mind. And it is true that when Daenerys does pass away, I could almost guarantee there's already enough textual evidence to suggest that there was going to be an issue for Jacaerys' Jake's reign. Excuse me, I keep mispronouncing his name, pardon me. Even though he's my favorite character, I do really like his character. But yeah, so I understood his point of view, and I was not disappointed with his quote-unquote a lot of people said that I was out of character. Again, for me, it did make sense. Speaking of out of character, though, I do have to agree with other people. Compared to season 1, Rhaenyra and Alicent, they really are acting quite differently, especially in terms of their emotional connection as well. And the first season, one could really tell that they were really good friends, really best friends, but unfortunately, because of duty and obligation, everything really just started falling apart and crumbling about as well. And we see that by the end of the first season, these two individuals who used to be best friends, unfortunately, I would argue they're more rivals now, more, if one wants to be nice, frenemies, I suppose, but even then I wouldn't even consider the friend part, just more the enemy part. So that's why I would stick more with rival. With the second season, it's looking less like the rivals and more like the are frenemies, which just, I don't know. It's just the way that these two characters were portrayed in the first season. I do agree with other people. It's not coefficient. it's not uniform, and it's really standing out a little bit. Hopefully, this will be remedied with season 3. One does need to keep in mind that supposedly the showrunner states, Ryan Kondo, that the writer's strike did not have an impact upon the show upon the second season, but maybe that was just words and that wasn't necessarily true. So with all that said, there's still some really great parts of the season 2. I'm not going to lie, the first half of season 2 up to episode 4, it was a lot of fun. It was great. And then after episode 4, that's when things started kind of slowing down a little bit, especially in terms of the pacing. A lot of people were also upset with Damien's story, but I was one of those individuals who had made the choice to go ahead and wait to see the conclusion of the story before I made a conclusion about the story itself. And I'm glad that I did that because although it wasn't irritating me like the same way that those mud scenes were, it was making me question what's the point of these scenes? Is something going to come from it? But it's looking like the writers are going to set something up with possibly Bloodraven, and the whole three-eyed crow. So we'll see if something will come from this. I think it will. In case one is unaware, again, spoilers. In the books, it's implied that maybe Damien didn't die at the Battle of the God's Eye. Maybe Damien somehow did get away. It's looking like maybe the show is setting up that he did not die, but rather maybe he became an agent of Bloodraven. But who knows? I might be incorrect about that. We'll have to wait until season 3. So, with all that said, and then one of my favorite scenes, I think it's worth it just to watch the show just for up to this point. I liked Christian Cole's character in season 1. Towards the end of season 1, I started not liking him. I liked the actor. He did a great job of portraying the character, but the character itself I was starting to turn against. And then for season 2, again, the actor did such a great job because I was really disliking Christian Cole's character. But by the by episode 8, there was a scene between himself and Alicent's brother, Gawain Hightower, that was such a great scene. I think it may be the best scene for House of the Dragon. And I actually rewatched it. It was just such a great scene. And I love how the characterization for Gawain, I am liking Gawain as a new character as well. Speaking of Gawain and new characters, Sir Simon Strong too. Both great new characters, Sir Simon Strong and Sir Gawain Hightower. At first, Gawain I didn't want to like him because he was part of the Green Team, but just his mannerisms and his behavior, he started warming up to me. And then after that scene in episode 8, he really convinced me that he's a great individual, and I just really appreciated his character. So with all that being said, would I recommend House of the Dragon Season 2? Yes, I definitely would. With some caveats, just being aware again that unfortunately Warner Brothers had an impact upon HBO, which affected the budgets, which affected the length of the season, which affected unfortunately some of the plots of the show itself. Yes, the pacing does fall a little bit. Yes, there is some different of characterization compared to season 1, but it's still if not a strong story, at the very least it's still an entertaining story with nuance that's included within it. It's not just a superficial story. There's enough where one can have conversations and discussions about what's being told and what's being presented. So again, would I recommend House of the Dragon Season 2? Yes, I really would. And if you're watching it, I would love to hear your opinion. And as always, thank you so much for listening / watching. I really do appreciate it. Have a great day, everyone, and take care.